Hello, I'm Elizabeth, owner of ER Marketing Services. And today we are talking with Melanie, who is a business astrologer. And if you're a business owner, maybe you're a solopreneur, small, medium business owner, you are going to want to stick around and see how you can use astrology to help your business. Melanie, why don't you tell me a little bit about what business astrology is and how you got into it?
Yeah, so there's all kinds of astrology. So, for full transparency, I am a modern astrologer and I promote Western tropical astrology. So, if you know, you know. But basically, what that is saying is I believe that the zodiac seasons are the same all year long. So, for example, if someone was born on October 12th, such as myself, that is during Libra season, and that's the same every year. When it comes to astrology for business, it's important to understand your own personal astrological birth chart and how it actually interacts with your business's astrology birth chart. So it comes down to the business owner to decide when their business's birthday was and the time. So if anybody's interested in discerning that, please contact me. We'll figure it out. But it's always important to see what's going on with your personal astrology day to day, year to year, and what's going on with your business. So you could have a very dynamic business that's always constantly changing depending upon when you decided its birthday was, whereas maybe your personal astrology is um, more static or more stable, right? So again, it's a whole thing that we can explore. I think what people do understand with astrology is it is the study of archetypes. It's all it is. When we say archetypes, we're referring to the 12 zodiac signs that are within each and every person's birth chart, but the levels of prominence of each archetype or zodiac sign in your particular birth chart is what creates your unique personality or how you react to the world. So, astrology is not necessarily a study of personality types, it's just the archetypes.
Very
Um,
cool.
yeah.
Now,
Um,
if someone wanted a reading, sorry to interrupt,
you're fine.
what kind of information do they need to know? So would they need to know the day, the time, any other factors to customize it to them?
Yes. So if you want to figure out you got to figure out your birthday. So most people know the birthdays, but sometimes people that were adopted may not know the birthday exactly. Then the next step is to figure out your birth time. Sometimes in the United States, uh, some states record it, other states do not. Interesting observation I've noticed. So you can always ask your mother if you have a relationship with her. She can kind of remember, although she was birthing a baby. So like, I think it's not really the most uh, reliable source. She's a little bit busy at the time. So if you're still not sure and your mom's kind of not that sure, also message me, connect with me. There is a process called retrification in which we can kind of pinpoint exactly when you were born. We can mess around with the chart, see what's going on. And if anybody who is kind of familiar with astrology would know, the ascendant or the rising sign is the natural energy you give off, and it also reveals what you look like. So, but that could take some time, but we can also figure it out. Retrification is the way to go if you don't know your birth time.
That's cool. And how specific does the time have to be? Can it be morning, afternoon, evening, or down to the minute? How precise should it be for a good reading?
Preferably down to the minute if we can manage. Um, there's other factors to figure that out as well. But down to the minute is the most accurate because you want to have the most accurate birth chart. Additionally, we do need to know where you were born as well.
Mm.
So sometimes people are American, and I find out they're an American born abroad, and they're like born in Germany. So it's going to be a very different birth chart than if you say I was born in Germany, but I spent most of my childhood in Cincinnati, for example. The more specific, the more details we have, the better.
And that's because of the way the stars were aligned above you at the
Yes.
time.
Hmm.
So cool. And as a mother of a 15 and a 17-year-old, I know exactly to the minute when my kids were born. So,
Good.
so most moms, you would be surprised.
Right.
The eviction was complete.
Got it done. Yeah.
Now, I'm really fascinated with the history of business astrology. Have who's used it in the past? What kind of results have they had? And let's talk about that big
Right.
picture.
So, super crash course is astrology was developed thousands of years ago in the Fertile Crescent, otherwise known as Mesopotamia, of course, the birthplace of civilization. And you learn about the evolution of astrology through the Greek and Roman empires. And actually, interesting fact, astrology was considered something that the lower people did until the wealthier classes realized how awesome and how interesting it was. So that's interesting. I guess you could say astrology had an early history of gentrification from the upper classes, which is interesting. It's used all throughout Western history. Kings, queens used it, emperors. And what they were doing basically is figuring out when's a good time to start a war, when's a good time to start a business endeavor, when's a good time to try to take over this village. So again, not the most, I guess you could say, a little nefarious. But it's also when's the best time for a coronation? When's the best time we should shoot for having a child for like an heir, right? People really did take this seriously. When it comes to American business and astrology, we have records dating back to as far as 1875, which was promoting astrological economics, if you will. They were quarterly pamphlets that were published as far back as 1875 on Wall Street in the US. So it has been a part of Wall Street for a very long time. Additionally, we have records of a mathematician, an economist, and an astrologer. He was all those things. His name is W.D. Gann. And around the 1910s, he was investigating or realizing, if you will, that the Wall Street economic cycles coincided exactly with astrological planetary movements, specifically with the outer planets, which include Saturn and Uranus and Neptune. Those are considered generational planets because they move very slow. So what he had done was say, how interesting. So he created what we now know as technical analysis, and that is associated with stockbrokering, and stock market cycles. So it literally runs on astrology. By the time 1899 happens, Evangeline Adams shows up on the scene. So she is a direct descendant of the second president of the United States, John Adams, and she was the astrologer to J.P. Morgan and other presidents of Wall Street hedge fund. So she was kind of a big deal. And she was so accurate and she freaked out all these really powerful men so much that the Supreme Court in New York State was like, we're going to take you to court. This is shady. We don't know what you're doing. We're going to make it illegal. So she went to court with it and she won. And she was like, we have a right to practice astrology in this state and in this country. It's a real thing. Please separate us from fortune tellers. That's not what an astrologer is. And basically, it was a woman. She didn't have any representation. She was just like, hey, here's all the facts. Here's like what I've learned. Please let me still practice astrology. And left her alone. And so by the 1930s, she also had her own radio show, which she talked about astrology. She's been featured in Time magazine. And I even have the primary source right here in my hand. It's a book that she had published in 1927. It's called The Bowl of Heaven by Evangeline Adams. And she explains in the chapter called The Moneymakers that J.P. Morgan was her client. She said it right there. So I remember I was researching all this, and in the New York City Library, they're like, well, we can't really verify if JP Morgan had an astrologer. We haven't found anything in his records. Well, now it's confirmed because right here in this book, right here, it's a real thing. And I want people to understand as a business owner, JP Morgan already made his money. John D. Rockefeller already made his money by the time they were going to her. But they wanted to retain the competitive edge. Again, as you and I were discussing, Elizabeth, they're not necessarily here to do relationship building at this like Gilded Age version of America, right? So they wanted to basically just suck up all the resources they could, and they wanted to hoard it, and they wanted to maintain it for their family and that generational legacy. But my thing is, for the people that are your clients, why wouldn't they just take the same information that is utilized on Wall Street every day? I read a statistic, 47% of Wall Street brokers still use astrology today. So why wouldn't you, as the heart-centered business owner with a soul, utilize the same information? You can keep that competitive edge. You have a soul, so you're not going to be crappy with it. And then you can also increase your income, increase your success, and also give back to people as well.
Very cool. Now, can you go into a little bit more of a deep dive of what a business reading is? So what would Evangeline had done, or what do you do for
Mhm.
clients? Um, we talked about birthday and time and business opening as information required, but once you plug that in, what are we looking at, and how can we as business owners implement it to either be aware and have it as our advantage in a back pocket?
Yeah. So when it comes to what Evangeline Adams is providing for someone like JP Morgan, she was looking at his personal chart and just kind of seeing what's going on with the trends forecasted for his life personally. She did not go into explicit detail about the chart because she wanted to keep the privacy. But the concept is, what's going on in your personal life? What's going on right now that maybe you're over 50, you're probably going through that midlife crisis thing. So what's something to look out for? And then if you're looking at a business chart with me and your personal birth chart as well, we're focusing on the 10th house. The 10th house in astrology just refers to your area of life, and that is the area of life, referring to your career, your life's work, and your legacy. So, for example, say the sun is transiting your 10th house. So, what it means, the sun symbolizing life source and joy and shining no matter what, is activating your area of life regarding your career. So, that could mean this could be a year or for however long the sun's there. It could be a time of like, man, you're showing up as the authority in your industry. You're on top of it. How can we capitalize on that? Maybe you could do podcast interviews. Maybe you could write that book you've been trying to, promote, or maybe the book has already been written. So like, what's the promotion plan? How can you show up as an authority? Right. Um, Checking out your 10th house can also allow you to do a client audit. Sometimes we think that we are working with the ideal clients, but actually the chart can reveal that you personally probably it could be working with a market you hadn't considered before. So it's kind of like a sleeper market, you know? Um, when it comes to your business birth chart, um, when was its birthday, right? I know a business owner who did not plan the birth of their business, right? But it started on 2/20/2020 at 2:20 p.m. It was kind of funny, like numerically. 2/20/2020 at 2:20 p.m. He did not plan it. So if he wanted to plan out, for example, say you're doing your 2024 yearly planning or something, you could pull up the birth chart, right? Check out the scene, and then see maybe as the sun is going through all the 12 zodiac signs for the year, what areas of life is a good time to launch a product? When's a good time to launch a service? When's a good time to reevaluate? Can't always be moving forward. We got to reevaluate and reflect. Maybe there's a period in your business where there's a slower season, a slower month. So maybe you can plan a vacation. Maybe you can plan a retreat. You don't always have to be on. So that's where some things that you can look over, looking at your personal chart and your business chart.
I have so many questions.
Yeah, come at me.
That's intriguing. And we had done a reading at the beginning of, you had done a reading on me at the beginning of the summer. And I do believe that you said I was going into a rest period. And I intuitively took July and August off. I was burnt out. And then I believe you were saying like September, October is going to be a rise for me. I don't remember the terms exactly, but I find that very interesting that it is naturally happening, and you had shared it because I had forgotten it until we had this conversation again, which is several months
Mm.
later. And how does
Yeah.
someone find you, work with you, and are there different ways of working with you?
Yeah. So if someone wants to connect with me, you can find me at melaniemarisol.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Melanie_Marisol. If there's someone trying to work with me, there are some options. So I do have the Divine Assignment and Legacy Building reading. It's 90 minutes, lifetime access. And it's figuring out, why are you here? What did you incarnate here for? What's the legacy you're meant to leave behind? Who are you meant to work with? I also have an aligned abundance reading that's also 90 minutes long, lifetime access. And that is for those that are interested in stacking cash. What are practical ways to get some money and cash flow going? What areas of life is going to be easier for you? What others might be more challenging? Again, doing that client audit. Are you really working with who you're meant to be working with? Also, we cover your money asteroids. So there are planets, of course, in our solar system that focus on money. So that's Venus and Jupiter, but also little asteroids that fly around throughout the year. So it's a good time to know where they're at and how you can build a plan around that. And for those that are busy CEOs that need to show up online more and increase their PR, I also provide a PR strategy for busy CEOs. So that is a 90-day container. And we figure out, again, using that astrology for business efficiency. You're a busy executive. Do you have time to be doing podcast pitching? Do you even like talking? Should we get you like to Forbes? Should you go write something instead? If you do like talking, do you like in-person events or podcast? So it's always good to discern what is the best use of your time by relying on the strengths. We're not necessarily trying to strengthen the weaknesses. We're strengthening the strengths to utilize your time wisely, because no CEO likes to do more work and get less payoff. So what is the best use of your time? So PR strategy for busy CEOs is also another way to work with me.
Awesome. I have questions about for the business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand if we're the solopreneur and that aligns with your personal, or as you know, an individual who's trying to navigate their business. What happens if you're looking at can you look at the business on a whole? And I'm thinking in relation, I believe the Farmer's Almanac is another
Mm-hmm.
way that's based on that. So it's more of the seasons and when to cultivate and the weather, and I don't know what it is exactly, but it's high level. Can you do, if you are a medium business with teams and levels, can you do an audit or some kind of reading on a business as instead of aligned with an individual? And how does that work? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I actually just bought the Farmer's Almanac 2 weeks ago
Ah.
from a local bookstore. Yeah, it is based on astrology as well, as farmers utilize astrology, whether or not they know it, because they plant by the moon. So it's interesting.
Mhm.
But yes, so when it comes to like a larger business, so some of my clients basically have very small corporations. You can also utilize business astrology to understand workplace astrology, I guess you could say. So you get your standard corporate test. So there's the Myers-Briggs, right? You got the DISC profile. I think that's another corporate testing thing. Or the Clifton Strengths Finder. That's also a thing. So those are great regular quizzes you could do with your employees. But understanding actually how employees' charts interact with each other could be interesting. So like maybe a manager and the people below him. So like how they all react together. How do you understand um the how do you understand maybe how HR interacts with your people? So I worked at
Mhm.
places where HR and the people are not vibing. There's just something going on there. So is it time to let go of your HR person, or can we investigate their chart as well and see like, these are their strengths, these are their weaknesses. This is where the communication issue is happening. That's always helpful as well. When it comes to a smaller corporation, understanding the business cycles too. So at the time of this recording, just for anybody who is somewhat into astrology, we have 6 planets in retrograde in our solar system. So that just means from where we're sitting at on Earth, they look like they're going backwards in the sky because they're actually so far ahead of their orbit. We're kind of behind, right? So it's an astronomical interpretation. But what it means is these 6 planets are forcing us to slow down, reevaluate, reflect, review, and see what we need to do to finish out this last month of quarter 3 and then move on to a robust quarter 4, you know? So that's also what astrology can be used for, workplace and also business flow. So, for example, I have clients that work in construction I don't know how, but I've encountered CEOs that manage construction companies. So obviously, if in North America, maybe winter might be a little bit slow for them, especially if they're in the Midwest where it snows a lot. So what can we do actually with your team? Okay, hey, it's a slower time of the year. Y'all still got to pay these people on your payroll anyway. So maybe it's time to do team building. Maybe it's time to do a team retreat in January instead of hitting the ground running, forcing yourself to do business that isn't there. So, again, utilizing that time wisely. I'm all about efficiency.
What I'm hearing, I love that, is that even though the business, you're looking at it as a whole, it still comes down to the individuals, which I love because people helping people, people buy from people, even though it's a
Mhm.
business entity that brings us together, it really is the individuals and how they are experiencing, I don't know,
Mm.
their happiness. If someone's miserable, they make, they have that
Yeah,
ripple effect and the office can be negative, or so emotions, or where your thinking is, if you have a lot of creative thinkers who are being led by a very linear in the box person, that can really
right.
change the dynamics of the culture and therefore the results. And that's why you need to look at that. You can pinpoint issues and then do a more deep dive. Is this person in the right role? Is this culture, because of the individuals who are being hired, giving results? Is it thriving, or is it
Mm,
time to make changes? And then, as you said, you can even use it for hiring so that you do
yeah,
build the
yeah.
culture that you are trying to design.
Yeah, so I'll give a caveat as well. I've had people come at me and they want me to prove astrology is real. I
Mm.
don't have time for that. Or they're like, oh, I've been doing just fine. I don't need it. Totally cool, rock on, whatever. It just so happens that my clients have actually hired the wrong person, or they acquired a hospitality business on
Mm.
March 9th of 2020. And it's like, oh, that was like the worst time ever to acquire a short-term rental property management business, in the beginning of
Mhm.
2020. Like, oh, but there also was astrological stuff happening at that time. So that particular client lost like millions of dollars.
Ooh.
So I wish I had known them at the time because I would have been like, don't bother. So for those that have worked with me, it's like, well, it's always nice to have that edge. You don't want to just hire someone because they seem good on paper. Um, so I don't know how that works with HR, I'll be honest. So I guess you would have to ask the applicant's permission if you're
Mm.
considering hiring them. May I look at their birth chart? And if they say no, then just say, you can't do it. But it's always good to figure out like, what's their personality like? And then actually, when you are considering hiring an employee, you might find that maybe they're not that great on their resume or paper, but the chart reveals actually they'll probably really get along with the creative director and they'll drive really well. You know, or for example, you're hiring somebody to work in your accounting department. You do not want a very dramatic Leo sun person, right? Who's like all about me and doesn't pay attention to
Although
detail. you
I'm a Leo
know,
sun.
yeah, right. But you're doing marketing. Like that would make more sense. Not to say that the Leo people that are Leo sun signs are all horrible accountants, but typically I have experienced most accountants have a lot of Virgo in them. So they're not a Virgo sun, they're Virgo moon or Virgo rising. So very detail oriented, almost to the point of kind of being annoying. But they are going to make sure every cent is accounted for. You're not going to have issues with the IRS. You know what I mean? Maybe you are a fitness company and you have a lot of Aries people, for example, and Aries, the archetype of the divine masculine warrior, the go-getter, like action taker. Even my clients that have construction companies, I find that there's most of their employees are have Aries placements, right? You want a go-getter. You want someone that has the physical strength to do the construction project. You do not necessarily want your contracting manager to maybe be a Taurus sun or have a lot of Taurus placements, for example. Whereas Aries is like out here taking action. Taurus is introspective, slower, like mellow, trying to chill out. Maybe a Taurus someone would work really well in the art department, for example, since sensuality is the big thing. So there's always tons of things to play with. And I also think people are assuming I'm stereotyping, and that's not really the case. It's just more of understanding someone very deeply.
And
So you can,
speaking of stereotyping,
Mhm.
um, as I said, called out Leo, I'm that. But my question is so I am a Leo by my birth date, but I know there's different houses and they bring out different, I don't know it very well, but they bring out different signs and that kind of energy.
Yes.
So can you have a shot? Because I'm actually an introvert, believe it or
Mhm.
not, but can a Leo be an introvert? And what is that based on?
Yeah.
So
There's other
it
things.
can pull energy from other signs is what my question is.
Of course, right. So you can be a very introverted Leo. I don't remember your moon sign offhand, but maybe the moon as well. So the sun sign is the core archetype you're embodying. It's what the sun shines through. And I think of all the other placements in the birth chart is like paper mache over top of the sun sign. So it's like adding that layer, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you might have a very sensitive moon sign, for example, that's like Scorpio moon or something. So like very private, or Cancer moon, like very private, doesn't like people knowing everything. I'll give a real life example. I am a
Yes.
Libra sun. So in business astrology, they are supposed to be the people person, right? Really good at connecting people. Libra is all about relationships. The joke is with my friends, I am the worst Libra. I can be, if I'm not doing well, I can be very argumentative. I can be like verbally, like really mean. But I had learned, for example, the sun is in the sign of Libra for me. Astrologically, the sun being in Libra is at its detriment. So this is a bit more of an advanced topic, but basically what it's saying is the sun shining, ruling Leo, being fabulous, shining no matter what, is active in a sign that's all about people pleasing on the shadow aspects, wanting to make everyone happy, which is very at odds with the sun because the sun doesn't care if you're happy or not. It's still going to be shining every day. So there you go. I'm not really at the most optimal condition as a Libra sun. And then on top of it, I have Mars, the planet of boundaries and motivation, also aggression and fighting, basically on top of my Libra sun. So I'm just like I can be very argumentative Libra.
And
So
that
you
all
know what I mean?
depends on the time of the year and how everything's aligning. Is that right?
The time of year, how am I doing interpersonally and intrapersonally,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm making time for myself, but also now that I'm a bit more mature now, I feel like in my early 20s, I was a very unstable Libra sun with a conjunct Mars, so not the most pleasant person to be around. I only bring out fight in Mars when I'm like really don't feel like I'm being listened to. Whereas other Libra suns that might have maybe uh maybe their Libra placement is closer to Venus, which rules Libra. So they're like a good person. They love partying. They're very sensual, like life at the party, right? Very extroverted. Whereas me, I'm very introverted. I need to have time to myself. And I feel like some Libras stereotyped are like, they will let people walk all over them because they're just so afraid of confrontation. I'm out here confronting things. Like you will know when I am annoyed. So I always think it's interesting when people are like, oh, well, it says, for example, I was born in the middle of November, so I'm a Scorpio and I don't feel that, I'm paranoid or I'm revenge seeking or anything. Well, maybe you might have a Pisces moon, for example, that is very sensitive and wants to forgive everyone. Or maybe you're a Pisces rising, which is like very encompassing and has like unending compassion. So you can't just rely on your birthday. You have to figure out your moon
Mm-hmm.
and your rising and how your planets interact with each other as well. That's a whole other topic. So do not want to overwhelm this time together.
I have one last question, and um, is this a knowledge is power situation, the business astrologer? Because we're all bebopping around, whether we know what the signs mean or not. It's still
Right.
happening to us. Just like you said, JP Morgan and all those other people had already had their wealth before they connected with Evangeline Adams.
Right.
So, um, just talk about, so we're all bebopping around doing our thing, and then I
Yeah.
don't know where my question is. Do you know where I'm going with this? Like, so
Yeah.
it's a knowledge is power, correct?
Yeah.
And then what can
Knowledge
we do
is
with that?
Knowledge is power. So, right. There's some people that are like, for example, the time of this recording, we're in the middle of a Mercury retrograde. It appears that your tech is going haywire and maybe your communication is a mess and maybe you're just tongue tied. You're like, ugh, right? Because Mercury, the planet of communication, is going backwards. So there's some people that intuitively don't know that it's happening consciously, but they're like, man, like my phone died on me, and like why my Zoom call didn't go through? Like I missed a meeting, right? So I think all humans have the ability to intuitively move through the world,
Hmm.
but having that level of self mastery is what gives you the competitive edge. So if I didn't know, for example, that my Libra sun is conjunct my Mars, I'm like, why am I just such a mean Libra? Like, what's my deal? I could probably go through my whole life being like, I'm the worst or I'm not a good insert, whatever. But now that I have the knowledge, I'm like, okay, reel it in, girl, calm down. And that's what I think with astrology in general. It can be, I think it's actually a good evaluation, self evaluation tool. I think that's the way to view it. It's a good tool to be like, you know what? Maybe I'm careening, or maybe I'm not really feeling fulfilled, or maybe I'm feeling burnt out. Let's go check out and see what's going on. It's a very good neutral tool. I have worked with tarot readers and other professional psychics, but they're relying on, like, what if you go to pay for them and they're like having a bad day? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, it depends on their mood, right? But if I'm having a rough day, I can still be a good astrologer because astrology, the modality, is this thousands of year old structure that's going to stay the same no matter what.
So we can, we could still live our life, exist.
Hmm.
And as I said, we had a reading in June, but I forgot about it. And I just
Hmm.
intuitively knew that I was burning out and I could not. I
Right.
could not work until about a week ago. And now I'm
Yeah.
glad that I did that because I'm more energetically aligned and I'm excited again to come
Hmm.
back. Um,
Right.
so we can do that, but this could be a roadmap, sort of like how a life coach, right?
Hmm.
It's like it's the map, and then we can just use it to guide, point our cruise ship for our,
Yeah.
wherever we're going, and understand the landmarks as we're going. And then, oh, I know where we are. That means, that's why my phone, as you said, isn't working. Oh, that makes sense. And when we have the clarity, we can make our decisions and our annual plan
Right.
accordingly so that we have the best chance for success in the moment. And now I know I like to follow my moon energy where I have higher times when I can
Yep.
stay up until midnight and work, 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 work. But I know that it's going to fall.
Hmm.
And then I'm okay with working 1 or 2 days a week. So it's sort of that you're following what your stars are telling you instead of wondering what is happening to me.
Yeah. It can feel like that, like, oh, I don't have any control over things.
Yes.
So I had met another business owner. She's like, I feel like I take one step forward and three steps back, no matter what I'm doing. Like, well, Saturn, the planet of responsibility and obstacles, is in retrograde. So it's like it's gonna reel you in. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
it's more of like, again, this is not to outsource you not taking action because oh, the stars are doing something. No. So this is more of a neutral tool to evaluate what you're actually doing. Um, you
Reinforce if you're on the right track.
right, right. Versus, oh well, I'm a crazy B word because I'm a Scorpio moon. Like, no, you're ridiculous. So why don't you why don't you establish some self-mastery, so you don't come off as an emotional mess?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been so wonderful. I love learning about different ways that people use these tools. And can you just give your Instagram and your website again so that if
Mhm.
anyone wants to connect with you, they can?
Yeah. So you can connect with me at Melanie_Marisol on Instagram. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. And you can also reach me at www.melaniemarisol.com.
Thank you so much, Melanie. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank
Bye.
you.